We are recording this meeting. And so, 1 second. All right. So I want to welcome you to our Meet the Changemakers Diversity and Tech Discussion and Hiring event. My name is Marco Lindsey, and I'm your host and moderator for this conversation. We've been hosting these hiring events for 5 years now. We're happy that so many of our attendees are landing career lighting and learning from industry leaders who are at the vanguard of diversity in tech space. This discussion will be centered around how they found success in the tech industry, what we can expect in the future regarding Black, Indigenous people of color in tech roles, and advice on how you can land a fulfilling role at a tech company. In a moment, I'm going to introduce our panelists. Then I'll ask them a set of preset questions. At about the 45 minute mark, we'll begin to pull from questions that you may have put in the chat box. We encourage you to do that. And then at the hour, we're going to conclude our discussion. To any of my company reps and recruiters, please make sure that your screen name shows which organization that you are a part of. And we encourage you to answer questions from career seekers in the chat box as well. Career seekers, I encourage you to put your LinkedIn profiles in the chat box, connect with one another, connect with our recruiters, as well as our speakers. We ask that you please keep your audio muted until the end of this discussion. And with that, we're going to begin our conversation. But before I introduce our speakers, I do just want to take a moment to acknowledge that we're at a very different space in this country, and as Black, Indigenous people of color. There's a lot that went on last week to affect our communities. There's a lot that happened this week as quickly as yesterday. And so we want to acknowledge that. We want to acknowledge the struggle is still going on. We want to acknowledge the lives that are lost. And even though, yesterday's verdict in regards to Derek Chauvin murdering George Floyd, even though that verdict somewhat went in our favor, there's still a lot of work to do. And justice has not been served, just in so much there's still a little girl out there who's growing up without a father. And so with that, I do want to introduce our first speaker, Rachel Williams. Rachel Williams is a Bay Area native with more than 20 years of experience in Silicon Valley. Her experience spans human resources, recruiting, strategic employment relations and engagement, organizational change, culture, learning and development, inclusion programming and implementation. Rachel is currently the head of equity, inclusion, and diversity at X, the Moonshot Factory. X creates novel technology solutions to address the world's most challenging problems. Prior to X, Rachel held roles as the first global head of diversity and inclusion at StubHub, where she focused her efforts on bringing equity to the company's workforce, workplace, and marketplace to drive inclusion. Rachel is passionate about developing unique programming to help build a culture of openness and belonging that embraces diversity as a dimension of a company's overall talent strategy. Prior to StubHub, Rachel was the first head of diversity and inclusion and corporate recruiting at Yelp, building Yelp's diversity initiatives from the ground up to accelerate action, which led to a 10% increase in women in technical roles, as well as the creation of numerous employee resource and affinity groups that had more than 75% employee participation, among other accomplishments. In addition to her roles with various corporations, Rachel lends her time to advise an organization dedicated to the improvement of diversity, equity, and inclusion. As an early advisor to diversity advocates, a K-Port Capital empowered group that seeks to advance inclusion by providing resources, knowledge, and networking to do pioneering work. As an advisor to Village Capital, Rachel met with several founders of color to help with strategy and provide impactful feedback. Rachel has spoken on her work in thought leadership at numerous conferences and universities like Tech Inclusion Conference, SXXW, the White House, North Carolina AT, Harvard Business School, Stanford Business School, Northwestern Kellogg School of Management, MIT. Rachel graduated from UC Berkeley, go Bears, and enjoys spending time with her more than 300 family members whenever she can. I want to thank you for being here, Rachel. Our next speaker is Kham Ward. Kham Ward is the head of diversity and inclusion and belonging, DIB, at LiveRamp, the leading data connectivity platform where he is responsible for implementing comprehensive DIB strategies and cultivating a sense of inclusion throughout the technology company. With more than 10 years of experience as a diversity and inclusion strategist, Kham takes pride in having designed and facilitated global diversity training programs to educate more than 5,000 participants, 97% of whom rated his course highly. Kham's philosophy is that while diversity can be achieve a little commitment. A truly inclusive environment requires the utmost tolerance, vulnerability, and trust. Prior to joining LiveRamp, Kham led diversity and inclusion efforts at Ultimate Software, Indeed, and Western Carolina University, where he worked in close proximity with senior academic leaders and C-suite executives. His DIB strategies provided companies across the world with tools needed to drive innovation, revenue, and human capital growth. Kham received his Bachelor's of Science from the University of Florida, a Master's of Education from the University of Maryland. He holds a Diversity and Inclusion Certificate from Yale, and he's a certified CQ and unconscious bias trainer. Thank you for being here, Kham. Our next speaker is Jason Atwater. Jason Atwater has been employed for 5 years at Ancestry, currently as a head of inclusion and diversity. He has previously served as partner diversity marketing manager and global lead for paid search. He is also co-founder of the first ethnicity-based employee research group at Ancestry, Black Roots. The group's mission is to champion Black employees and customers to enhance Ancestry's business through recruitment, employee engagement, community partnership, and customer experience. Prior to Ancestry, Jason worked for 15 years in digital marketing for various tech companies, including Salesforce, Zendex, Intuit, and AT&T. He is an alumni of the UC Berkeley Haas Executive MBA program, where he was co-VP of diversity and inclusion for his class. He is currently serving as a member of the Berkeley Haas Part-Time Admission Diversity Council and the Haas Alumni Diversity Council in a continued effort to increase diversity opportunities for underrepresented minority groups at Haas. His undergraduate degree is in material science engineering from Carnegie Mellon University. We also want to thank you for being here, Jason. Now, once upon a time, there was a creative who, due to unfortunate circumstances of society, suppressed her creative gene to learn how to maneuver up the corporate ladder. Fast forward 10 years, she has discovered how to embrace both the creative gene and corporate lessons to benefit this generation. Trinidad Hermida is the head of diversity and inclusion at Niantic Inc., an AR technology company that produces mobile games, including Pokemon Go, Harry Potter, Wizards Unite, and Ingress, which have jointly had over 800 million downloads. Trinidad has the drive and ambition to champion positive change. Since joining Niantic in December 2018, she has brought expertise and passion in championing burgeoning diversity initiatives. She is here to empower each and every person who crosses her path. Trinidad believes that by setting a standard of incorporating everyone's genius, we can change the game. Trinidad is excited to learn from all of our journeys and partner together on what we as a cohesive team can do to make the world a more diverse and inclusive home for all of us. On any given day, you might catch Trinidad traveling the world to visit friends or volunteering her time to educate the next generation through life coaching. We want to thank you, Trinidad, for being here. And so with that, now that we know all of our speakers, I'm going to go into our questions. Panelists, I'm going to throw this up and you all can answer in whatever order you see fit. But the first question is, how did you initially get into tech? And how did you get into the role that you are in now?
I'll start since mine's hella unconventional. So I got into tech through, I was an executive assistant to the head of diversity and inclusion at EMC Squared. And this was probably 10 years ago. I was in Massachusetts. I was working at a guarantor company as an executive assistant. And I remember telling the CEO, hey, there's this Black woman in a tech conference. I think you should pay for everybody to go. And he was like, okay, that's the power of executive assistants. Just want to put that out there. You know, we are the voice of most of these executives. So I used my voice to get 400 women from the company to go to this tech conference. Right. Well, went to the tech conference and the keynote speaker was so dope that I went up to her after and I was like, hey, I'd love to just treat you to coffee, dinner, whatever your journey, and learn from it. And we met up at her favorite restaurant. Make sure you have at least a couple bucks in your accounts if you're going to invite someone to go to dinner. But we met up there and she offered me a job. She said, hey, this is not a shoo-in, you have to apply, but I'd love you to be my executive assistant. I like your drive, your passion. And I think this is a great move to get into corporate America. So fast forward, got the job, and learned everything about D&I through her. She was my mentor, my boss, advocate, and also hellraiser. Like, she put me through hell sometimes, but like, I gotta love her because it was like my D&I boot camp. And so that was my entry into diversity, equity, and inclusion through her. And working for a company that had over 50,000 employees at the time globally, I just learned a lot of how to navigate leadership, how to navigate people, how to navigate and empower people, because everything came through our office. So fast forward, we got acquired by Dell. And then when we got acquired by Dell, I saw the writing on the wall and I was like, oh shoot, I need another job because there's 2 D&I teams, you know, they're gonna fire me. Anyways, that didn't happen right away, but fun fact is everybody that was on my team is no longer there. So I went into product. And I worked as a product manager for several years, realized I hated product. I don't like herding cats, but then realized, you know, when was the last time I was passionate and actually happy? Not actually, I don't like the word happy, empowered to do what feeds me, what gives me energy. And so I decided in that moment to like not leave my product job until I got a D&I job that met the needs of me creating generational wealth, but then also met the needs of me being able to give my gifts to something that I believe in. So then I ended up at Niantic. So that's my short, like, and that's over, just so you know, that's over like a 10 to 15 year span. But like, it was definitely an adventure. I'm done.
I'm happy to go next. Yeah, so my story, I've been in tech for over 20 years. I started after undergrad, I have an engineering degree. I started in the electronics and semiconductor industry. I worked for companies that made disk drives and disk drive heads and all that fun high-tech semiconductor industry stuff. So been in the tech biz for quite a while. Transitioned from engineering into sales, which was my first of several career pivots. And that happened primarily because I was an engineer that actually enjoyed talking to people, which apparently is rare. And so I got roped into going along with salespeople who weren't particularly tech savvy, so they had a tough time answering the technical questions. So I started going along with them to field the tough questions, and realized I could do the sales part myself too. So had a side pivot into sales for a number of years until I then pivoted into marketing, which is where primarily most of my career has been, in digital marketing. And loved paid search and SEO and all that stuff for many years, but realized it wasn't feeding my soul. And having been in tech for so long, so many companies that I worked for, I was the only Black face or one of a few. And I'd always thought, you know, what can I do to open the door up for more people? How can I change this so I don't feel so alone in meetings when I'm the only Black or brown face there? And I think that was my first wanting to get involved in inclusion and diversity. And I think it came to a head when I went for graduate school to MBA at Berkeley, go Bears, that it really came to a head that that this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my career. And Marco, who is there at Berkeley, was very instrumental in getting me the right contacts and helping me to position myself for that jump from marketing into diversity and inclusion. And I started my own employee resource group at Ancestry, where I work, and had been doing stuff behind the scenes, made it very aware to all the C-level people that this is where I want to go. And so when the opportunity arose to an opening as head of inclusion and diversity opened up, I was the first person they thought of and made the jump in, and have been doing it ever since, and loving every minute of it. It was absolutely the right choice for me. So much happier, so much more challenged, so much more focused. I feel like I'm making positive contributions to the world instead of writing marketing copy and running marketing teams. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Loved it for many years, but this feeds my soul.
Kham, go ahead. Got it. So yeah, I was gonna wait, and be the last one. Ladies first, always for me. But all right. So hey, hello all. I'm Kham. Um, my journey to tech space, I started out in higher education. I rose to the director level at a school over 10,000 students, and I was roughly about 28. So I was fairly young, the youngest director in the country at the time at a school that large. And I hit a ceiling where individuals said to me, hey, listen, Cam, we want you to function as this chief diversity officer, but you do not have the necessary PhD degree to sit on the president cabinet full time. I was a partial president cabinet. They allowed me to come in there when they wanted me to fix the problem or talk to faculty, but they didn't want me to sit there the entire time. So at that point, I said, you know what, I'm gonna commit fully to this degree. After my second year, I decided to leave the institution and go ahead and commit to the degree. Now, everyone knows leaving a full-time salary job for no job or a GA-ship is rough. All right, so, your boy had 15 jobs at the same time. All right, so one of my jobs overnight was at FedEx. I was a part of the loading the plane crew overnight, which is probably one of the best jobs I ever had because it was the coolest. I didn't have to think. I just do my job. Go in there from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. and we did our job. And my manager at the time on SkyCap, he hit me and said, well, Cam, why are you here? And I was like, because I need a job. He was like, but you're probably the smartest person in this whole facility because you got a master's degree, da, da, da. And I said, I'm never too big or boastful to be able to be humble enough when I need a job, when I need work. I was like, I'm not afraid of that. He was like, cool. He said to me, have you ever thought about doing your diversity stuff for a corporate space? And I was like, what is that like? And he was like, and he introduced me to a couple people at FedEx, which I absolutely love, and introduced me to a couple people, and I started to learn more and that sort of thing. And I was like, wow, global diversity, that's much different. I reached out to a recruiter from Indeed, and I had to sit down and talk with her. And then my leader, Donna DeBerry, who I owe my whole tech career to, she took a chance on me. And a chance meaning that she saw my resume, she was able to read my transferable skills, and she hired me on the strength of my personality, on the strength of the ability to change hearts and minds, and she molded me right into what I am today. So she had a heavy hand in it, but and then I continued on to different roles, and my roles grew. I had more responsibility, got more, got closer to the C-suite and that sort of thing. But the main point I want you all to take away from the story is that it was someone that was willing to take a chance on someone else. All right. Us on this panel, us chief diversity officers, ahead of whatever we call, these 4 people across the spectrum are here because we're interested in taking a chance on individuals that don't have the necessary D&I background, but has the experience and can speak to it, and not just passionate about it, but purposeful in our work. All right. It's one thing to be passionate about, that's an emotion. You get over that. But what happens when you're personal, when you're purposeful in your work, is that it drives you beyond the step of tolerance. All right. So that's my short-lived experience. That's how I got into this work, and that's why I absolutely love it.
I loved hearing all these stories. I
Yeah.
can listen to them again. Well, we're recording, so I guess I can. Hey, everybody. I'm Rachel Williams, Head of Equity, Inclusion, and Diversity for X, formerly known as Google X. We're part of the Alphabet family. Long story there. I don't have time to get into it. But how did I get into tech? Let's see. I don't think I really had a choice. So I don't really have a story where someone extended an arm or a hand to me. I didn't participate in the on-campus recruiting at Berkeley. Go Bears. Super biased on this panel, by the way, Marco, just calling that out. I left Cal after graduation 25 years ago, y'all, 25 years ago. I took a job with Accenture and was a recruiting assistant, had no idea what recruiting was, but figured I can assist anything. I got a degree now, so let's just go ahead and do that. And worked my way up to become a recruiter, head of recruiting, and all of that. The point where I think is a turning point in my career came when I was at Yelp. They were pre-IPO. I was head of recruiting. After some time in that role, I was made to feel different. I was made to feel excluded. I wasn't welcomed. My contributions weren't being valued. This is pre-conversations around equity, inclusion, and diversity. So back in the olden days, y'all, about 2010, 2011. I left Yelp, and 2 years later, they go public. Unfortunately, your girl wasn't a part of that IPO, so therefore did not get my millions that were due to me. And this work is personal for that very reason. Because I was made to feel different for my contributions, who I am, I left money on the table, life-changing, generational wealth building money on the table. And I don't want that to happen to anybody else. So I joined another startup, things were going well. I get a ring, a call from the COO at Yelp, who asked me to rejoin Yelp and become their head of diversity and inclusion, because I was very honest about my feedback and my experience there. Note to self, give them the feedback. Don't be afraid of that, because look what could happen. So after a couple of deep conversations with them about what they had been doing around equity, inclusion, and diversity since I gave them that feedback, which was nothing, and they were honest, I rejoined Yelp in 2014 and headed up diversity and inclusion, and also took my old job back, heading up recruiting. Since then, I've been deep in this work and really excited to see the changes. It has been a tough 12, 14 months, but I see some silver lining in what's happened. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Thank you all. Everyone can see people have come from very different and diverse backgrounds. There is no linear way into tech. People come from all different walks of life. And so I want to encourage everyone on the call to remember that. My next question to the panel is, what changes are you seeing or are you expecting to take place in tech, given everything that's happened, over the years, and especially this past year, dealing with COVID, dealing with, all the things happening with communities of color. What are you all seeing and expecting?
So baby boy, I'm gonna tell you that your connection is not that great. I don't know if anybody else is gonna tell you, but I'm the friend that's gonna call out the fact that you have spinach in between your teeth. So I'm gonna say it. There's that. So I know the question you were asking. I'm not sure everybody else heard it. Would you all like me to repeat the question?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Okay. So the question that, Mark, are you still there? Thank you. I thought it was my network. Okay. I see everybody is. So the question is, what changes are you seeing or are you expecting to take place in tech, given everything that's happened over the last year? Which one of you illustrious panelists want to take that one first? I got lots of thoughts, but I want to leave it to you all.
Yeah, I got thoughts too.
You should go first,
Share 'em,
Rachel.
Jason.
Rachel, you should go first.
I got thoughts. So I think one of the big shifts is that companies that traditionally don't speak up on social issues have been forced to in the last year because of everything that's going on, my company included. I've definitely seen a shift where I think both customers and employees are demanding that companies take positions to speak up on where they stand. And I'm glad for it. I'm glad to see it happen. And beyond just facile, easy, we support Black Lives Matter kind of things, but that's an easy route. Customers and employees want more than that. They want people to put something behind what they're saying. What are you doing for your customers? What are you doing for the community? How are you reaching out? How are you changing the way you hire? All of that, I think, has been kind of forced onto companies, and the good ones are responding. I think the other thing is COVID has also changed things. So many companies haven't embraced the work from home prior to COVID. And now companies are, it's been proven now that you can get work done with people not in the office. And I think that breaks open a lot of opportunity for people who may not be in the Silicon Valley or New York or in high population centers to still land jobs and work remotely. So I think more companies are willing to have that talk now and have more jobs that are remote. So those are just two things that immediately popped into my head.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. I mean, I guess I'll jump in here with mine. I appreciate the shout out to COVID. I do think the future of work that we've all been talking about for a number of years is actually here. This opens up the candidate pool quite a bit now that we are in a hybrid workforce of work from home and in-office work. So I see the possibilities of increasing representation in our organizations from that standpoint. It has also created a conversation around mental health, which I am very appreciative of. That has been something we've swept under the rug. We haven't acknowledged, especially when we're talking about the work of equity, inclusion, and diversity and the trauma that many of us live under on a regular basis and how that impacts how you show up every day. So I feel like that conversation is at the forefront, and we can have it now in an open environment. What's also been great, I guess great might be a stretch. What's also been helpful is that our lexicons have been opened up quite a bit. I can now say white supremacy without people thinking I'm talking about folks in hoods. I am not. I can also say racism and racist without people cowering or getting upset with me about it. So I feel like what's happened has opened up the opportunity to have truthful conversations, uncomfortable conversations that we've been needing to have in many, many years. I think it's one of the main reasons we haven't seen as much progress, because these conversations were happening in nooks and crannies of our organizations with just a few of us, but not with all of us. And I think now is the time we can lean into bringing all people to get involved in this work.
I think for me, the single most important thing that has happened and will transpire and continue to be the forefront of everyone's mind now is diversity, inclusion, and belonging. COVID had, if anything have come out of COVID that's been good, COVID has set a lot of people down, all right, from the constant move of their everyday life, and also provided a window and the opportunity to literally walk in someone underrepresented shoes. And now D&I professionals has gone from nice to have to we need you, right? And that was something that's truly, I think, is life-changing in the corporate space, especially in the tech space. It's more now the focus, like we need you, our workforce isn't sustainable, we won't survive, right? Versus 10 years ago, 15 years ago, having a chief diversity officer or anyone in the seat is like a nice to have, but we don't really need it. I think everyone has realized that the need for the, on all different levels from all different underrepresented groups and the focus on it now. So if COVID haven't done anything good, that is probably one of the better situations that have come out of COVID, set people down. I remember, I don't know, and I'm sure the other professionals on the panel can share, we usually on flights at least 2 or 3 times a month, right? I haven't been on a flight in over a year. I watch so much TV, that I've never seen before. I got a set of shows now. Okay, I'm probably getting off topic. But the point is, right? The point is that, this thing has really awakened the world to what the 3 of us on this panel, the 4 of us on this panel have been screaming for 20 years. And it's now visible to other people.
Amen.
So I'm a big component of like, if people said some dope shit, if people said dope stuff, I'm not going to repeat it just to sound like I know what I'm talking about. So I just want to +1 everything that was just said.
Love it. Dope shit was
Yeah.
said. I got you.
Did we lose Marco?
Marco,
I'm here. If you all can hear me, I'm going to post the question as well as read it. But what are your organizations currently doing to support Black and brown employees?
and since I didn't talk in the last question, I guess I'll move forward with this one. There's a lot going on, and I feel like even what I'm about to say is not enough, but it's a beginning. And at Niantic, we have some dope benefits that help with like making sure that you can get counseling, and it's free counseling. It's not something that you have to pay for. We also have 100% paid health benefits. So it's like, if you do want to continue after the set amount of time that we've given you, you can go forward. We have some dope ERG, I use dope a lot, FYI. We have some dope ERGs that are supportive. And one thing that I can say during the last year and a half, we've seen more of a collaborative effort on raising awareness around just systemic racism within the company. So, calling it out from our Compass, which is our LGBTQ+, calling it out from our AAPI ERG, like collaborating. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Last year, around the time of the murder of George Floyd, we did make a statement at Niantic. And in that statement, when we were formulating it, we were very clear that we didn't want to just make a statement and walk away. We didn't just want to throw some money at an organization and walk away. So we made it a pact that we were going to not only donate money, but also use our platform and our resources to make sure that we get back to marginalized communities, Black and brown communities in America, but then also focus on training race and allyship and bystander training within the company for all people. But we wanted to start with our executive leaders and then go to our people managers. And then now we're going to roll it out to our individual contributors. But one thing that I do want to say is we started a Black developer initiative. But anytime you start something from scratch, you have to do your due diligence to make sure it's equitable. And it's very easy in tech to just move quickly and fast and not think about, okay, where are the systemic cracks in this process? And is everybody going to walk away feeling proud of this product or proud of this program? And so it took us 6 months, and we told that story because people were like, oh, where's this program you said you're going to do, and I didn't want to just take a cookie cutter approach of taking another program that we have and just saying, oh, we're going to just do this because that's how we do it. And we're just going to add the name Black to it. So we didn't do that. We did the due diligence. We're getting people their funding for their prototypes through Niantic. And then there's an option for publishing. And one thing I recognize in this space of tech is sometimes your best option is not having it published by the person who provided the funds for you to get prototype. And the blessing in this program is they can walk away with their prototype. So that's one of those programs that I'm super proud of, along with empowering hearing, open doors. We have a lot of questions, you can ask whatever question anonymously or not. And in these, I call them, people are going to be mad at me, but I call a lot of things low-hanging fruit because it's just blatantly out there. And it's like, yo, this is low-hanging fruit. And I find that a lot of tech companies, because that's the only space that I've really been in the last 10 years, love low-hanging fruit, but don't love to unpack and show the systemic cracks within human resources, or the systemic cracks within your performance plans, or the systemic cracks within how you produce or how you empower products to green light. Green light is when you say, go, go, go. All right, we're going to put all the funding behind it. But those are not shiny, glammy things. You can't really go to the mountaintops, especially as a private company, and say, oh, by the way, we did this. And by the way, we changed our characters. And by the way, we did it. So understanding that when there's a benefit to being public, there's a benefit to being private. That's a whole nother conversation. But one thing that I've realized is those non-shiny, glamorous things, those are high-hanging fruit. Those are things that people don't necessarily want to do because it's not showing a quick return on investment. And I'm I'm that bitch that likes high hanging fruit. You know, I'm not, here I go, start talking about, I'm not fucking around. Like, so like for me, it's like not to be able to, like, yes, ERGs are imperative. Business resources groups are imperative. Making sure that we give back to the community, imperative. But those things are not going to change systemic racism. I'm sorry. And don't call me out, but I've been in this game for at least 10 years and we're doing the same shit we were doing 10 years ago and expecting different results. So for me at this point, I'm really trying to navigate and test and trial and error and fast fail, because everything that's in my head, I'm like, all right, let's see, maybe this works. And honestly, some of the things that I've found that work the most is helping people get from their head to their heart to their hand. And what I mean by that is like getting people to understand that it's not just a data issue, or it's not just something that you can throw a pin at the internet and find information on why this is a business imperative, but you actually have to like feel and be connected to someone and see how this actually affects your community. And if it doesn't make that travel of whatever is this 12 inches, I don't know, whatever, but that travel, then you're not going to see someone move to action. And so my goal in D&I is getting people from here to here. And once they're here, I can work with you. But if all you want me to do is throw data at you, go look at the Harvard Business Review, go look at McKinsey. I don't have time. You know, like, so I'm someone who loves empowering people through experiences. And of course, COVID has done a lot around stopping that, but we've gotten creative. We're agile. We know how to pivot and move because we love people. And so I think I'm off the topic now, but yeah, so creating experiences, giving access, giving space. I mean, even this week, I sent a note to all people managers yesterday saying like, yo, let your Black and brown folk take the rest of the day off. Like, I'm signing off, peace out. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot going on in the atmosphere and we need to put the mask on ourselves first before we're trying to put it on someone else. Especially as a D&I practitioner in this space. Yesterday, I needed to cut off at a certain time because I wasn't going to be any good to anybody after that verdict was said. So I digress.
Kham, Jason, don't leave her hanging.
Yeah, Trinidad, you really spoke a whole lot of truth in that. Just from my perspective, I think some of the things that we try to do at Ancestry for our Black and brown employees was to open up dialogue and have some conversations. It's my company probably is a little bit more traditional. Our customer base is more traditional, more European descent. And I think when I started 5 years ago, there was one employee resource group at Ancestry, and it was a women in technology group. A couple years later, an LGBTQ group started, and then I started with my co-founders, a Black employee resource group. And since then, we're now up to 6 employee resource groups. There's an API, a Latino group, and a veterans group. And I think having all these groups, the big focus among them is having conversations. When George Floyd first happened, the whole situation last summer, the employee resource groups pushed for an open forum discussion. And we had that company-wide open forum discussions where we just got on and we talked about it so people could ask questions. The people that didn't understand what was going on, they didn't understand Black Lives Matter, people who were saying all lives matter and all that kind of stuff. We wanted to have this forum to talk about it, to get it out, and to so people could explain the situation. And it was pretty raw. People asked some tough questions. We wanted to make it open so people felt comfortable asking questions that they didn't understand. And there were some tough questions. Someone did ask me, or ask the group, why do people get upset when they say all lives matter? And I tried to break that down in the discussion as to why that's offensive. And people really got it. I got a flood of emails and messages after it that the way you very kindly broke it down without accusation, but with kindness in your heart, really helped me. I now have tools to talk to my relatives that say this and explain to them why this is offensive. So trying to do things like that. And we've since had other conversations. I started a speaker series where we bring in speakers and we call it amplified voices, because we're amplifying voices that aren't traditionally heard at our company. So the first one this year was for Black History Month, and we brought in, because Ancestry is in the business of genealogy and DNA testing and all of that, we brought in a Black historian who talked about his own journey with researching his family history and why it's important, and tying it to genetic theory on race and why from slave times, why things are broken down the way they are. And it was really powerful because it explains a lot of things that maybe people didn't understand. And I want to continue that series of talks. We've had one for women's history. We have one coming up for LGBTQ, but it's about having conversations to get people talking and maybe help people learn, especially people who maybe not have been exposed to conversations about these groups. That's what we've been focusing on. Going back to something that Rachel said about mental health, the company's been really proactive about that, of giving us mental health days, of just, they'll pick a random day and say, all right, we're closing down on this Friday and everybody's getting a mental health day. It's not a traditional holiday, it's just we're giving everybody some time because we know it's been a rough year, and they did probably 6 of those just, since last summer. And also making everyone aware of all of the resources we have, the numbers that they can call to get mental health services. So really, the company's really been driving that kind of thing home. So I think between all the work the ERGs are doing, the work internally to make the product more appealing to Black and Brown customers that may have not felt that it was for them, it's been all the positive things that Ancestry and all the work that I've been trying to work on to do. I think it's been positive. There's obviously a lot more work to do, but I think we've made, just in the last year, we've made a lot of big strides.
I think for me, it's been 2 things that I've done since being at LiveRamp that really support the Black and Brown community. The first thing is to teach people what allyship really means. Everyone is uber excited to call themselves an ally and with their well intentions and their ally center ERG groups and that sort of thing. And I had to demystify that notion immediately. Right? Teach people how to truly be an ally, truly what I believe allyship means, which is the product of someone using their platform and their space to amplify someone that doesn't have that same voice in that platform. Instead of someone saying, oh, I'm an ally because I told them what Black and Brown employees need. And it's like, but did you even ask anybody? Right? That's more so saviorship. Right, and saviorism. So really educating the community, because well intentions don't always equal positive impact. All right, I'm gonna say that again. Well intentions doesn't always equal positive impact. It doesn't matter what you meant. It's more so the product of what happens. Right. So we had to walk through that and walk through microaggressions and walk through emotional tax, right? What's the definition? 60% of people that's Black and Brown deal with emotional tax in the workplace. Emotional tax is when you have to be on guard by your bias and your racist actions that may cause you pain and harm in the workplace. Remember, we spend more time at work than we do at home. Mm-hmm. So especially now, we spend more time at work at home because of COVID, right? So really walking through with different individuals about what this means and this notion of truly supporting, and don't go into certain meetings that's not for you with your microphone ready to share when nobody asks you to. Like, those are the things that I walk through. So when you talk about the support of the Black and Brown community, of course we leverage dollars. Of course we did things like that. But for me, it's about making sure you understand what a supportive role looks like for this community. So yeah, that's the things we did.
Thanks, Kham. First of all, I appreciate the question. I also love how you flipped it, because this work is not for the Black and Brown people to do. The work is on the majority group to hold, considering that they're still in positions of power and privilege and all of that, right? So I appreciate that. What I also want to maybe illuminate is the over-indexing on Black and brown people right now. And I cautioned us after George Floyd last year as an organization. By the way, I'm not about to brag about what Google, Alphabet, and all that's doing. Y'all can read about it. I'm sure you hear about it in the news. You can also hear what they're not doing. So I'm going to leave all that alone. We got the basics, you know, we've got classes, we've got tools, we've got Lyra, we've got benefits, we got all of that. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the other stuff that you don't hear in the news. You all can research what's going on, but that we over-indexed on helping this one group. And then we had anti-Asian hate. So now we're all running over here to do this. I think our approach needs to be more holistic in our view and in our conversation, that the programs need to include intersectionality, right? Because what you see here is not just all of me. I am an able-bodied person, but I could very well have a hidden disability. You don't know. And so when teams and companies start to over-index on this one thing, and then they're running around and then they got to index on this other thing, how about you just keep inclusivity at the top of your conversation at all times? That way you don't have to go around running like a chicken with your head cut off after every incident, because what we have seen is that there will be no end to these incidents just because there's been a change in administration. Like, this is kind of where we are right now, that we all need allyship. We all have the ability to be an ally given the right context. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But I know we have people here that are looking for opportunities. So I also wanted to flip the question just a little bit and give you all some tips on what it is that you can do to make sure you are walking into a safer place, a safer workplace. So one thing I would say is, you're coming to this event right now, build your network. Connecting with all of us is a good thing to do, but connect with one another, even better. Spend time as you would on TikTok and Snapchat and all the things, building your LinkedIn profile and digging in LinkedIn. I still do this today, so I'm not telling you anything I don't do. I spend 15, 30 minutes every day on LinkedIn. I got 18,000 people in my network. I don't need no more. What I am, though, is looking for information. I'm looking for new connections. I'm looking for who can I help and who can help me. That is what that platform is for. I spend more time there than I do on Instagram. So if your opportunity and life work and all of that ain't right, you might want to check where you're spending your time. So that's one big one. Two, don't ask the recruiters and ask every person in your interview panel what they have done to contribute to equity, inclusion, and diversity. Ask what the company did during these COVIDious times to support their employees. You are well within your right to ask these questions during your interview process. I want you to be empowered and know that we're looking for you. We want you. You are a valuable asset. And therefore, working from that power, that space power, ask these questions. These panels are great. We're all doing the work. But who's going to affect your day-to-day are the people on the interview panel that you're going to be working with day-to-day, especially in these COVIDious times. None of us have seen the total org, right? I've been really working with probably, I would say every day, just a handful of folks. And they affect my day in and day out. And so when you're on these interview panels, be sure to ask questions beyond what's been posted, beyond the statements that the companies have posted, about how is it really to be a Black woman there? How, like, let's break it down. Tell me what it is that you've been getting from your boss and the support, and will I be able to move up and all of that? So I just wanted to say those couple, 2-3 things to get you all encouraged about looking for work, joining us at our organizations, do your research, build up your networks, and ask some questions. It's time.
You know what? I'm gonna double back on Rachel if it's okay, Marco, because I'm currently in the search process for 2 roles on my team. And if you're not asking me the questions that Rachel's asking me, I know you can't be on my team, right? Because I'm not interested in individuals that want to be surface. This work is deep, right? This is to our core. And we deal with some of the toughest stuff in any organization, because we deal with it in a way that doesn't show direct correlation to the bottom line. Right. So So if you're not asking me the deep questions and you're staying really wide, it's okay. And every hiring manager is probably not going to say this, but it's okay to ask the tough stuff because we deal with it every day, and we want to make sure you comfortable asking, because part of diversity is dealing with the uncomfortable at any given moment. So you have to be okay within yourself to be expressive and to be able to share. That's the only way you're going to succeed and be successful in our experience.
Love it.
Boom.
I love it. Right? Mic drops. Pivoting on that, we have some people on the call that are in college or want to pivot into tech from non-tech industries. Do you have any advice on how they can communicate their background and skills to land a role in tech? I mean, especially given we have a few people on the panel who didn't start off in tech as well.
I will start. I'm going to say some pretty basic stuff that I think people don't necessarily take into consideration when they're trying to get into a certain field or an industry. One thing Rachel said is she spends a lot of time, even 15 minutes a day is a lot, on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, networking, Twitter, believe it or not, I've made some dope friends on Twitter just by fangirling and like responding and being like, yo, I love your work. Can I get to know you? Sliding into their DMs, you know, all that. But one thing I will say though is make it easy for whoever you're trying to network with. So do all the work. And what I mean is like, create some beautiful paragraph or something that just introduces yourself and says what your intention is. And then let them know like, hey, all I want is like 5 to 10 minutes or even 15 minutes just to introduce myself and see if there's any synergies. Then also make it easy. Say like, here are my times. I'm willing in the afternoon, in the evening. I will tell you the amount of people who've reached out to me and they expect me to take care of them, just and the amount of cold calls and different things that I get inside my inbox, I'm funneling through them, trying to see like, okay, all right, this is someone just trying to sell something. This is someone who's just trying to get it, you know, and then also I tell people, if you're trying to get a job and that's your intention with the connection, put the job link, put why you are the most valuable and the most qualified person for that role, and say, hey, I'm interested in this job. I don't know if you know the hiring manager. I don't know if you know a recruiter, but if you could forward this information to them, that would be, you know, like something, make it easy. So I say LinkedIn networking in an open world where we're like going to conferences and going to networking events, like don't be afraid to reach out to someone before an event and say like, hey, I'm going to this event. I see that you're speaking at it, or I see that you're going to be there. I'd love to just say hi, you know, and also one thing that Rachel said, this is another reason why I don't speak up in these calls sometimes, because everybody will be dropping knowledge. But what Rachel said also is network with your colleagues. Like, fun fact is my colleagues back, like when I first started into tech, they're now like directors, VPs, like CEOs, like, and these are my colleagues. These are my fam. These are people who I used to joke around with and complain about work with, you know, and now I have the opportunity to talk about negotiation, talk about things that matter to me, and also throw things at the wall to see if it sticks with the people who I grew up around. So those are my two fun facts.
Yeah, to tag onto that, and all that was excellent. But I come from a marketing background, and I think Rachel really hit on it. You got to market yourself. You've got to brand yourself. It's so important for you to get on LinkedIn, especially if you're trying to pivot into something that's not what you do right now. You need to make those connections. You need to reach out to the people who are in that industry. Join groups. If you're trying to get into tech, join tech groups on LinkedIn and start talking to people. And brand yourself. Talk about what you're interested in on LinkedIn. Make yourself stand out so that when people look you up, they see that you're talking about this stuff, that you're into it, that you're passionate, that this is what you want to do. And when you reach out to people like us, the panelists here, you know, make sure you're coming correct too. Don't just drop in on somebody's message and say, here's my resume, and then expect them to do all the work for you. You need to speak up and say, okay, here's my intention. Here's what I'm interested in. I did some research in your company, and here's 3 jobs I'm interested in. Would you take these to the proper people to get my resume seen? Don't just drop your resume on and expect us to do all the work for you. I get that all the time. People just drop in and say, here's my resume, find me a job. No. Thank you. Have a nice day. I'm too busy for that. But if somebody comes to me and said, hey, I did some research, they know some things about me, they talked about it, I've done some research on your company, I'm really interested in QC work, or I'm interested in doing this. Would you help me? Would you make some introductions or some connections with me? I'm much more likely to respond to that email than someone who just wants me to do all the work for them. So that's my advice to all the job seekers: is do your research, know something about the company, know something about the jobs, know something about the person you're reaching out to, what their interests are, and try to connect on one of their interests. Hey, I see you went to Berkeley. I went to Berkeley, and that simple thing could make your email stand out than the 50 other emails I get on LinkedIn every day from people that are trying to sell me something or looking for a job. So make yourself stand out.
Can I just double really quick, Cam, just to double back really quick on what Jason just mentioned? I cannot stress this enough. If you all think that it's just a resume that the recruiter is looking at, you are sorely mistaken. We are searching you and scoping you out and seeing what you all about on your LinkedIn, on your social media. So I would say that is your brand. So if you're not doing a little bit of posting about what it is you're passionate about, but only on there for the hee-haw and the kiki, you probably won't be standing out. Right? So your digital footprint is really important to recruiters. Recruiters are really savvy folks. We go above and beyond this resume. So just think about your whole and how you're presenting yourself out into the world. And if you're pushing out your ideas, your original ideas, your passions, your hobbies, your all of that, in the mix of all the keying and the having fun. So I just had to say that.
And I just want to double tap on what everybody said in the group, but also make it real for you all. In my position, I wrote Rachel in Trinidad on LinkedIn, didn't know who they were, right? I just know these was two dope ladies that I need to get in contact, that I wanted them to be involved. And they reached back out to me, right? And from that, we formed a beautiful relationship. So they're not saying anything that's not true. For me personally, I make time for people that make time for themselves. So if you write me on LinkedIn, and you really want to have a conversation, I will take the time out, because my legacy is what we leave behind, not what title we can grow, right? At least in my opinion. And I believe to whom much is given, much is required. So much has been given to me thus far that I have to pay it forward and give it back. It's an obligation, all right? So for that, I'm telling you that these people are serious about, if you write them and it makes sense, they will respond. Because even in my role, less than 6 months ago, I reached out to Trinidad, and Trinidad gave me, she kind of played me a little bit before. She was like, man, my calendar filled into March. And I was like, sis, I need you now. And she was like, all right, cool, let's make it happen, right? And we made it happen. Same with Rachel.
May now. My calendar's at June, May.
See,
that's like
right,
end
my
of
point
June.
exactly. And I was like, yo, sis, I need you now. And she was like, all right, cool, let me make time. But that's the community you want to build. That's the neighborhood you want to build, where you have the outlet, but you have to do the work in. And 9 times out of 10, we will reach out. I'm speaking for the panel, but we will reach back if you make time for yourself. So you got to put in the work, and you can't be afraid of it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. We're coming to the end. I do have one question. Knowing what you know now, is there anything that you would have done differently when you were starting off in your career or in tech that you can share with these folks who might be starting off now?
I was about to say, been a doctor, gone into dancing with Alvin Ailey, something else. But let me think about your real question you were asking.
For me, it's a part of the journey, right? So I could say I could change everything. I probably would. I probably do that different, but I wouldn't be here chatting with you if I did, right? So for me, it's about the journey. So I wouldn't change anything. It's a part of who I am and my upbringing and how I got to this seat, and how, my views are made whole, how I am made whole, so yes, I wouldn't change anything. I would tell my younger self probably not to do certain things that people told me not to do, but because I'm hard-headed, I did it anyways, so but it makes for the better story, right? So yeah, so that's my take on it.
I think I would have given my younger self the advice to live your authentic you sooner, to not have played identity politics and try to be the best in image of what I thought this group thought I would have to be in order to succeed. I would have been who I am, spoken the way I speak, and not felt embarrassment or shame or tried to fit into a certain mold. I would have just come and say, this is who I am. This is what I do, and done that earlier. I do that now, but 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I did not. I tried to fit in to a certain mold and believed all the BS of identity politics, which I reject now.
Jason, you just took mine. I think I'm gonna frame it a little bit different. Look, I was raised by a baby boomer who grew up in Jim Crow South Louisiana, and fled that situation and came to California. And how she raised me was to go on this job. It's a good job, no matter what they're paying you. It's a paying job. Keep your head down, stay out of trouble. Ask your boss every day if there's anything that you can do for him before you leave and go home. And what I know now is that is not the way the world is. I know she was trying to keep her baby safe and that she was giving me advice from her heart. But what I know now is the power that I have. And just like Jason said, I operate and move so much differently in these organizations. I understand we're talking about jobs and people want to get jobs, but I think, and the mistake I've made in the past is being afraid of losing my livelihood. And losing your livelihood is one thing. Losing your life and giving your life to these companies is an entirely different thing. I do not give my life to these companies. I do not also worry about my livelihood. I know that I am talented, I am skilled, I am smart, and like Kham, I can go and move some boxes overnight at FedEx if I have to. And so when you're working from a place that no one can take anything away from you because you're not fearful of losing the little carrot they're dangling over you, you operate and move in a company so differently and with power and from strength. And so I hope and pray and wish for all of you to find that early. I know it is not easy. I hope you have your aha moment, that situation, that thing that spurs you to that moment of power. But baby, when I tell you that it's so freeing when you get it, no matter what age you get it at.
Yes.
Do I wish I had it when I was 32? Yes. Yes, I do.
Last but surely not least, I want to talk to all the misfits, all the people who were not accepted in school, feel like you probably don't belong on this earth because you think different, you speak different, you may look different, you may have different thoughts like that in the room. And what I would tell my younger self is continue to be true to yourself. Like, trust your gut. Like, simple as trust your gut. Like, there are moments when I've been in rooms and I'm like, this is trash. And then I'd be like, okay, like, and I want to speak to what Rachel said is this livelihood, right? Like, a lot of people are stuck in positions or jobs because they're afraid to not be able to provide for their families. And building generational wealth, if we talk about like tech, Bay Area tech, a lot of people of color didn't get in on a lot of these startups because they were risky and they didn't know that if it would succeed or IPO or whatever. And I'm telling you, take the risks. Like, if anything, I was going to tell my younger self is continue to take risks and continue to trust your gut, continue to utilize your skills to know who's for you, who's not for you. Fun fact, your coworkers are not your best friends. And they will stab you in the back. So be very, not even trying to be funny, but like, just be very careful of who you trust with your, you said fun fact. Rachel, don't be calling me out. It's a fun fact. So just understanding that we are here for a purpose. Follow your passion. I did a talk with, what's the grad school at UC Berkeley? You know, that one. I did a talk there. I'm just joking, Haas. And when I was talking to the grad students, I said, I need y'all to be still. I need y'all to acknowledge that. Is this your passion, or are you doing this for money, or are you doing this just to grow? And when you understand where it aligns within your purview, then you can hit it with 100% of your effort. And so I'm just saying, like, don't just do stuff just to do it. Don't do it because your parents told you to do it. Don't get on this train of, you got to go to college and you got to get married and you got to have a house and you have to have kids. Like, that train, you can get on it, been on it, and when you wake up and you go, wow, why am I on this train? And you realize that society kind of nurtured you into this train. The possibilities are endless. You can do anything. And I'm not even trying to fake the funk. Like, it's a fact. Like, and I think sometimes the hardest piece is understanding who you are. Take the time to get to know you. I promise you that's going to help you in your relationships, in your work relationships, in your future. If you take the time to understand what drives you, what makes you wake up in the morning, and you understand that, like, everybody on this panel, we all love what we fucking do. And that's why we're able to, like, get up every morning with a hard job where we're dealing with bullshit, most days. And so, like, because we love what we do and we have a vision, we have a passion. So make sure you have a passion, make sure you have a vision, write it down, make it plain. And also make sure you trust your gut. That's all.
Thank you. We're running out of time. We're close to the end. And just, I know some folks have had and will continue to have to log off. I know Kham had to go. I want to get to at least one question from the audience, but I do want to, just in case, thank our panelists for all this information that they've shared. It's been monumental. And folks are saying in the chat, I'm taking notes personally, and I'm not even looking for a job. And so, give your organization feedback. They need it. Spend more time on LinkedIn networking than you do on TikTok and Instagram. Ask organizations when you're hiring, what are they doing to support folks during difficult times, and make time for people who are helping themselves. We have another event I just put in the chat that's going to happen next month on navigating the virtual hiring process. So if you want, share that, sign up for that. And I have one more question I want to pull from the audience that if our panelists have time for it. And the question is, when dealing with white allies in your organizations, do you feel that it's necessary to bring in someone else who's also white to speak to those organizations and those subsets of people?
That's a very good question. I'm kind of mixed with this question, just to keep it a buck. I definitely think it's imperative to have people from said background who can speak to real content that is vetted and edified, and that someone of color can say, yep, that's some dope content. Yes, go and teach it. But I do think that sometimes like a lot of, I'm going to speak for myself, a lot of Black and brown people in my life and my purview have been used, abused, and even had, if you look at history, and I'm a Christian, right? And Christian history is like missionaries would go to countries and like tell them what is the way that they should live and how they should live and all these different things. And there's a distrust there. There's a distrust because of countless historic facts. So it's very, I'm not saying it's rare and it's not impossible, it's not out there, but I think there's some dope white practitioners in this space who I value, but they've done the work themselves, and they're not just toting around like, hey, I'm the white savior. They're really humble. They're really coming before you with facts, with data, and with understanding, because they're surrounding themselves with people who they trust and who identify and are representative of the communities that they're trying to help. So I personally, it's depends on the person, place, and thing and time, because going into a predominantly, like, you also want to have someone who is that Black and brown people feel comfortable with going to and expressing their issues and being open and feeling safe. And sometimes that's really hard when you have trauma from your life.
Yeah, uh, I just have to hit +1 to all of that, really. So I think in our case, we do try to mix it up, and if there is a speaker or someone who I feel has something to add to the conversation and they're white, absolutely, I would have them come speak. But I also make sure that there are safe spaces, that there are um, uh, times when there's kind of a just us thing where people need to vent, and we created that after George Floyd. We had the open forum where everybody was there, but we also had discussions where it was kind of just the Black Employee Resource Group kind of core members, so that we could kind of vent and have discussions about things that were just us kind of things. So I think having a balance of that is important.
Thank you both. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Trinidad. In their absence, thank Kham and both Rachel for all the insights provided today. I do hope that folks are connecting with our speakers on LinkedIn. They gave you the keys to the kingdom. They told you how to reach out and how to come correct so they can support you on your journey. We've had our talent representatives put their information in the chat. We hope that you connect with them, but also connect with one another. A lot of LinkedIn profiles, and let's build that connectivity. Let's make sure that as a community, we're coming together to help one another and help solve the problems that our world and the tech industry is facing. And so at this time, we're going to conclude this conversation. We do hope to see you at the next one. And thank you everyone for being here. And let's keep fighting a good fight. And let's make sure that we all do everything that we can to help support one another and look out for one another in these trying times. So thank you. Enjoy your afternoon. And we look forward to connecting with you in the future. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Marco.
Thank you, Jason.